Hello, and welcome to this video on neurotic conflict and Freud's tripart structure of the mind. I'm William Indick, author of Psychology for Screenwriters, now in its second edition. Freud's structural model of neurotic conflict was born out of his theory of the Oedipus complex. To illustrate this internal psychological conflict, Freud divided the unconscious into three separate structures. The id represents the primal, animalistic drives that are present in the infant at birth. A literal translation from Freud's German term, das Es, is the it. The id is pure instinct, driven entirely by the pleasure principle, and interested only in satisfying its own impulses. The power of the id is libido, the primal life force that empowers every animal with the basic instincts of sex and aggression. The villain character in films is often a representation of id energy. Vampires are excellent examples of id monsters because they derive sexual pleasure from the aggressive act of sucking blood from the soft throats of their maiden victims. Serial killers such as Hannibal from The Silence of the Lambs also tend to mix their aggressive business with sexual pleasure. After the id, the next unconscious structure to develop is the ego. Translated from Freud's German, das Ich, the ego is the I, the central representation of the self. The ego is constantly developing, constantly learning new ways to adjust to the demands of society, and hopefully becoming stronger and healthier as each day passes. In this way, the psychological function of the ego is directly parallel to the function of the hero. The hero is also developing, trying to master his environment, overcome obstacles, and defeat the depraved villains out to get him. If the hero is not some way better, healthier, or stronger by the end of the film, then his character has not developed. The hero is the Ich, or the I of the film, the character that I, the viewer, identify with. His character must develop in order for the film to communicate on a psychological level. And just as the ego's job in the unconscious is to repress and control the id, the hero's job in a film is to capture and defeat the villain. The hero's triumph over the villain symbolizes the triumph of the ego over the id. In the traditional plot structure of The Maiden in Distress, a villain or monster kidnaps the maiden to satisfy his own immoral and libidinous desires. In rescuing the maiden, the hero foils the villain's unholy schemes. The hero's triumph recalls the Oedipal drama, in which primal libidinous desires are defeated by the symbol of social restraint, symbolically destroying the troublesome id drives and transforming the taboo desire for mother into a socially appropriate desire for the nubile young maiden. The problem of libido desires is an internal conflict, played out by inner demons and temptations. The internal force needed to control the dark power of the libido is supplied by the third unconscious structure. Translated from Freud's German, das Über-Ich, the superego is the over-I. The unconscious representation of the morals and social conventions instilled in the individual by authority figures such as the father. As the son grows older, his feelings of aggression toward the father transform into a sense of respect and admiration. By identifying with the father as a role model, the son internalizes the father's moral values and beliefs. In essence, the superego is a psychological embodiment of the boy's identification with his father. While the id and superego are unconscious internal figures, The conflicting forces of primal impulses and moral conscience in film are usually represented by external figures. The id usually plays the part of the villain, and the superego is typically cast as a mentor character. The mentor provides the hero with a father figure or role model who informs the hero of his moral obligations and gives him the psychological strength he needs to succeed. Even if the hero's conflict is internal, your primary job as a screenwriter is to express this internal struggle visually. Show, don't tell. Creating external representations of internal psychological structures, id as villain, ego as hero, and superego as mentor, is a traditional method of visualization in storytelling and a crucial method of visualization in film. Thank you for listening. These are the films referenced in this video. And don't forget to check out my book, Psychology for Screenwriters, now in its second edition, as well as my other books on psychology in film, and my book on the psychology of fantasy, or my more recent books on media psychology. I hope you enjoy these episodes on the application of the science of psychology to the art of screenwriting.